Greetings. This will be an important video regarding two major earthquakes that struck the Hikurangi margin, New Zealand region back in 1947. Both of these earthquakes, magnitude 7.7 and magnitude 7.6, had very significant tsunamis associated. Now this video will be using astrocartography, and it shows an amazing link between planetary stations, planetary alignments, as well as the lunar nodes and their reconnection for these major earthquake events. Now I've gone right back to 1937, 9 years and 3 months prior to this major earthquake series that struck the New Zealand region. And the main reason is that we have a Saturn station marking very near the earthquake epicenter, which is marked and depicted by the house in the right hand side of the image of the astrocartography. Now if we have a look at the Saturn station, notice position 28 degrees marking the area in question. And if we have a look at the lunar node, its orientation and angle situated at 5 degrees, and we just have the sun just moving through that connection with the north node at the same time of this station, which will be quite important, as I'll show shortly. Now moving ahead to November of 1939, just 2 years later, this time Jupiter makes a station very near the house location. Now we can say that the Saturn station and Jupiter stations could actually be marking both epicenters of the 1947 earthquakes that struck the Hikurangi margin. If we have a look at the Jupiter station, we can see it's connected into the Sun and trine aspect, and Saturn is about to connect into the south node. So the question is, why did it take 9 and 7 years for these earthquakes to follow these planetary stations? And I'll show why, as we have a very distinct relationship between Sun, Jupiter and Saturn about to reveal themselves and actually give us an exact date of a future earthquake event for the region. We're now looking at the exact date of the earthquake in 1947, March 25th. Where a 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck the Hikurangi margin and produced a 10-metre tsunami affecting the region of Gisborne. Now if we have a look at the chart aspect on the left hand side, note that the Sun is about to make a very strong connection into the node. It's about a day and a half away from hitting that perfectly, and note the nodal aspect situated and its orientation at 5 degrees 43 minutes, and this is quite important, as we'll see in this next frame. We're now looking at a snapshot of the Saturn station of 1937 and comparing it to the exact time of the earthquake in 1947, and we see a very fascinating correlation. Note the nodal orientation and angle at 5 degrees 56 minutes on the left hand side while Saturn was stationing, and it was also a Sun has just moved through that connection. If we have a look at the time of the earthquake, the Sun is about to move into trine aspect with the node, but importantly the nodes have hit 5 degrees again, 5 degrees 43 minutes at the exact time of the earthquake. So we can actually see that the node is hitting the same point, although flipped north and south. And importantly, we have the Sun connecting at both times. And this is a fascinating correlation, and I do believe that using this methodology, we can actually predict the exact date of a future event using the same modelling. We're now looking at the exact date of the second earthquake that struck the New Zealand region, the 17th of May 1947. Now this earthquake was magnitude 7.6, and another fascinating aspect that we're about to look at, note that Saturn has just moved through perfect trine aspect with the nodes, and we have a double planetary alignment, Sun and Mercury, which is synonymous with earthquakes across the New Zealand region. We get it showing itself again with the second earthquake. And Venus and Mars are also in conjunction at 26 degrees, so another fairly interesting dynamic showing itself and revealing itself with a series of earthquakes across New Zealand. Now this is the second earthquake in the series, but importantly we have some very interesting symmetry with Saturn now connecting back into the node at trine aspect. Now looking at another frame which will raise another eyebrow or two. If we have a look at the position of Jupiter at its station in 1939 and comparing it to the exact time of the earthquake in 1947 on the right hand side, note the Jupiter position has just moved through 28 and 27 degrees, and it's actually moving through the same position as the Sun was at the time of its station back in 1939. So we can actually say that the nodes made a full reset in orientation at 5 degrees, but at the same time Jupiter has done a reset as well, swapping the position of the Sun, also marking a future earthquake event to come. So this is a very interesting symmetry involving the planets hitting the same points in orientation, which can actually help us predict a future earthquake event based on the same orientation and correlative influences. There are a few more influences that occurred prior to these major earthquakes, and I'll show them now. We have Neptune moving across the region, which is an interesting correlation as we have Neptune and Saturn moving across the New Zealand region in 2024 and 2025, and we had that from 1939 to 1944. So there's a very interesting correlation prior to the major earthquakes that struck in 1947. Importantly, a Neptune station in June of 1942, note its location and longitude line around Hawke's Bay, stretching in towards the Bay of Plenty, and a series of loops moving across the New Zealand region. But importantly, at the time of this station, we have Venus making a perfect connection into the nodes. Now, following up the next loop of the Neptune movement through the region along the Hikurangi margin, Neptune makes its station again, and we have a look at the exact time of the Neptune station in 1943, just slightly offshore. Have a look at the Sun position connecting perfectly into the nodes at trine aspect. And the final template that I'll be showing is the January 1945 station of Jupiter. This time the MC of Jupiter moving across the region. We can actually see Wairoa below, right through the Hawke's Bay region, stretching in towards very close to the White Island volcano into the Bay of Plenty. So you can actually see we have a very strong symmetry showing with a series of planetary stations prior to these major earthquakes. But importantly, at the time of the Jupiter station in January of 1945, have a look at what's taking place with the chart. The Sun is connected perfectly into the south node. So we get some very interesting correlations back, and it's almost like a mirroring symmetry. Now, there's a lot more going on with the chart. We see that Saturn is having a very hard square aspect into Neptune as well. But importantly, we get the Sun, Jupiter and Saturn showing themselves quite regularly prior to major events. So the more correlations we get, it seems that the greater the series of earthquakes will be. In other words, the higher the magnitude, if we get a series of very significant aspects echoing back through. I do feel that these past major earthquakes and their correlative influences with the planets as well as the lunar nodes, we do see a very strong correlation and a potential mechanism to predict future earthquake events. Now, I do feel that the New Zealand region could be at risk for another strong earthquake event to come, and that's why I'm studying these past earthquakes very closely. I do feel that the region around Wellington, specifically the Wellington Fault or the Lake Wairarapa Fault, could be at risk for a strong event. And judging by the stations of Saturn and the correlative symmetry, I do feel that we should be able to predict a relative time frame for this event based on the previous earthquakes that we've studied and the patterns that have been found. Thanks for watching.